Hi, I'm Clifford Bates, and welcome once again to our second session of reading Plato's Apology. Uh, well, we've went we so far what we covered. We're using the West translation of it. So far, what we covered was the introduction of how we came into the thing, the accusations, and we ended with bringing of the example of Caraphon. Caraphon will be the witness of the god, what happened at Delphi. So we'll start a little bit where we go back a little bit at 20, line 20e. Again, remember, these are the Stephanus numbers. The Stephanus numbers are on the side. It's page and letter column. This is the uniform way of Socratic texts. We'll go at around 20e5. Uh, um, Now, please, men of Athens, do not make a disturbance, not even if it seems to you to me boasting somewhat. For mine is not the story, and I will tell that I will tell. Rather, I will refer to a speaker trustworthy to you. In other words, he's to speak with someone who's witnessed that they would know him. For my wisdom, if it is indeed a wisdom, is of a kind, and what sort it is, I will offer to you a witness, the god in Delphi. In other words, the Delphic oracle, the god in Delphi is Apollo's oracle at Delphi, right? And he goes, now you know Caraphon, no doubt. He was my comrade from my youth, as well as a comrade of you multitude, and he shared in your recent exile and returned with you. In other words, he came back with them and returned with them as the third rise of the 30 tyrants left, and with them forced a lot of the leaders of the democracy out of the country, out as exiles. They outside organized, got weapons and thing, and invaded and liberated Athens from the 30. Uh, and he returned, in other words, with the exiles to overthrow, to establish government. Right? He's a hero of that, and and you do know what sort of man he was, how vehement he was in whatever he would set out to do. In other words, this is his reputation. He was very, he was very vehement, very current. This is Socrates makes a point about this, and West's note 27. He gives Seraphon, a principal companion of Socrates, was always known as someone. And Socrates would sometimes called the madman. Right? He would be someone who was being very vehement on doing something. And in particular, he once even went to Delphi and dared to consult the oracle about this, about what, but this is what is Socrates' wisdom. Okay? And now, as I say, do not make disturbances, men. When he asked whether there was anyone wiser than I, the Pythia replied that no one was wiser. And concerning these things, his brother here will be a witness for you, since he himself has met his end. In other words, Caraphon himself died, and during the in the liberation. In other words, his brother knows this, and he'll be the witness if you need to. Pietha is the title of the priestess who delivers the oracle. Now, the priests would the priestesses would ingest something, and then they will say something, and the priestess would report what was said, usually some kind of random words of things. And here, the line here is, none are wiser than he. In other words, that's a riddle. None are wiser. What Caraphon asked him, in other words, Caraphon asked him um, uh, asked him, uh, was there anyone wiser than Socrates? Who was wiser than Socrates? And the oracle replies that no one was wiser. Okay, and there's a pun here. I mean, none are wiser. Okay, so, That Socrates is very wise, is none are wiser. Okay? Now, consider why I say these things. I'm going to teach you where the slander against me comes from. When I heard these things, I ponder them like, whatever is the God saying? And what riddle is he posing? For I am conscious that I am not at all wise, either much or little. So, whatever he is saying when he claims that I am wisest, surely he is not saying something false, or at least for that is not sanctioned for him. In other words, is the oracle lying? Okay, that's the. This. There is something. Upon hearing this, Socrates' first thing is says, "Well, it can't be true." Socrates. Now, the oracle is the Oracle of Delphi. It is representative age of the god. And the god just said, and Socrates' first thing is, well, I know I'm not wise. What is the god getting at? Is he lying? In other words, actually, he doesn't accept the oracle statement. He challenges it. Now, is that kind of impiety? And that's that, isn't this impious act in that sense? Or is it a pious act? And he says the God cannot really be saying a lie. So what is this riddle about? Okay, and he goes, um, um, and he goes, I'm conscious I'm not wiser, even as I'm conscious that I'm not at all wise, either much or little. So whatever he is saying, that he claims that I'm the wisest. Now it doesn't say he's the wisest; none are wiser than he. Okay, but I mean it's interesting in itself. It's wisest, right? Surely he's not saying something false, at least that is not sanctioned to him. For a long time, I was at a loss about whatever he was saying. And then I very reluctantly turned to something like the following investigation of it. I went to those who were reputed to be wise. Now, reputed, now, the 29, this is docine, means have the opinion, a dox or opinion of something. Some had the opinions of being wise. I went to those reputed to be wise, on the grounds that there, if anyone, I would refute the divination by showing that. Now, he's trying to refute or to show that I'm not wise, okay? That there's someone wiser than I am. So Socrates is going on a quest. He reluctantly, but goes on a quest to what? Refute the oracle. Okay. In other words, he goes out. He said, "Those who are wise, who had reputation, those who had reputation for wise, I would refute the divination and show the oracle. This man is wiser than I, and you declared that I was wisest. So I considered him thoroughly, and I need not speak of his by name, but he was one of the politicians. Now 31, politicos, which is the leading statesman, right? And when I considered him and conversed with him, men of Athens, I was affect I was affected something like this. It seemed to me that this man seemed to be wise, both as many other human beings, and most seemed to be wise, both to many other human beings and most to himself, but that he was not. In other words, he seemed to be wise both to others and himself, but he was not. And when I tried to show him that he supposed he was wise but was not, and then I tried to show him this, right? So this is how I became hateful both to him and the many present. In other words, I went to this people who are wise. I went to them. One of them a politician. The other ones, people think they're wise. I went to them, and people believe themselves wise, and many people believe their belief, but they weren't wise. And when I tried to demonstrate to them they weren't wise, neither they nor those who believed in them liked that much. And this is why Socrates got the negative reputation, he's saying. For my part, I went away. I reasoned with regard to myself. I am wiser than this human being. In other words, For probably neither of us knows anything beautiful or good, but he supposes he knows something when he does not know, while I, just as I do not know, do not even suppose that I do. In other words, I know I don't know. He believes he believes he knows, but he doesn't. And I, at least, I'm better than him because I know I don't know, but he does not know that he doesn't know. He thinks he knows, but he does not. I know that I do not know. So I'm better than him because I know that I don't know. Okay? For he supposes he knows something, but when he does not. Whereas I, just as I do not know, I do not even suppose that I do. I am likely to be a little bit wiser than he in this very thing. And whatever I do not know, I do not even suppose I know. This is this idea that this is Socratic ignorance. This is the thing called Socratic ignorance. Socratic ignorance, and it's the basis of his argument, saying, I know that I don't know. I know I don't know. So I want to know, so I want to test it, but I know that I don't know. So if I don't know, uh, I want to know. So how do I know? I will try to find the truth of the matter, right? By other people. See, we test the opinions and claims. He says he knows. I'm going to go to him and to see what he knows, and challenges him to see if the logic, if he makes it, does he know what he really claims to know? And if he doesn't say that, then and he still insists that he knows what justice is, then I at least know that I don't know. He does not know. He thinks he knows. Um, from there, I went to someone else who was reputed to be as wiser than he, and these things seemed to me to be the same. And this is where I became hateful both to him and to many others. After this, and then keeping going even after another, all the while perceiving with pain and fear I was becoming hated. Nevertheless, it seemed to me to regard the matter of the God as the most important. Sorry, I need to. My throat is getting. Uh, in other words, nevertheless, it seemed to me to be necessary to regard the matter of the God as most important. So I had to go in considering what the oracle was saying to all those reputed to know something. When I had anyone who claimed or had the reputation of knowledge about these things, these important things, I would go to them to test whether they have those knowledge. This is kind of like the trials of Hercules, right? He has this idea of like the trials of Hercules. He's going to make that myth, this image. It was the quest, Socrates' quest. The oracle gives him the I claim that he's the none are wiser than he. He doesn't believe that. He knows he's not wise, so he goes to those who are reputed to be wise, and see what their wisdom is and see if they have wisdom. And he discovers that no, they don't. And again, he keeps on doing this. He goes, and he keeps on going to looking first to the politicians, the poets, the sophists, the rhetorers, all these people, and then he finally goes to the craftsmen. Okay, and every one of these he goes to discover something, and it gets kind of. And what happens? The people that he confronts and shows, makes the point that challenges them, and they get frustrated. They come to hate him, and the people who had faith in them, who believed that they were wise, are angry at Socrates as well. So therefore, not only are the people he's refuting angry, but the people who believed in them, who had the opinion about their wisdom, are angry as well. Okay. Uh, um, and nevertheless, it seemed necessary to regard the matter of the God as important. So I had to go in considering whether the oracle was saying to all those reputed to know something, and by the dog. Now this is a weird thing. This is the by the dog is apparently unique to Socrates. He swears by the dog, the Egyptian god, The dog may be Artibus, the mediator between the upper and lower worlds, right? A Greek counterpart is Hermes. In other words, he brings a foreign god in here. Okay, go on. He's child. In other words, in a many ways. I mean, one of the remember, we have to remember that his not believing in the gods, introducing foreign gods, and corrupting the young. These are the three principal charges. Um, First thing, his testimony here almost kind of indicts him. Why? Well, I heard the god, Caraphon went to the oracle, and the oracle said, none are wiser than Socrates. And the first, I know that can't be true. Don't believe in the gods. And I'm gonna, by the way, I'm going on this giant quest, checking out everyone who thinks they know, have wisdom, and to see if they really doubting the gods. And then what? And this is because the gods must be up to something, and I've got to test it because I know that I'm not wise, right? And then he goes to the thing, and then the line goes, he would then and buy the dog. Okay, you did buy Zeus early now. Buy the dog. Now, a foreign god. He's in the chamber. He makes reference to the foreign god. This is like really rubbing the face, rubbing the charges in the face of the jury. Okay. If, is this a is this really a prudent thing to do? The way he's going about here, in many ways, it's Socrates. What the hell are you doing? You've just, in many ways, you've confirmed in one way some of the charges in that sense. Uh, he goes. Had to go on and by the dog, men of Athens, for it is necessary to speak the truth before you. I swear that I was affected something like this. Those with the best reputation seem to me nearly the most deficient in my investigation with accordance with the God. And while others with a more paltry reputation seem to be men and more fit in regard to being prudent. Now, this is the word the Greek word phromenos ranges from this merely sensible to wise, right? Sensible, more likely sensible. Phromenos, the more likely regarding this as being phromenos, sensible to wise, right? Um, and indeed, I must, in other words, those who had a great reputation were the most efficient. Those who were paltry reputation were at least sensible, okay? And indeed, I must display my wandering to you as a performing of a certain labors, so that the divination would turn out to be unrefuted. In other words, Socrates, a certain labors refers to labors of Hercules, right? The traditional hero. With a less obvious Socrates' wanderings, right? Which allude to Odysseus as well, which is long track home to Odysseus. So there's two ideas of the heroes of the old. One on the wanderings back. One is of Odysseus coming back from the bad war and trying to get home to his wife. And then the other one is Hercules, the great tasks of Hercules that Zeus set upon him to accomplish, the tasks of Hercules. So, in other words, he mentions in it the labors, performing certain labors so that the divination will turn out to be unrefuted. After the politicians, I went to the poets, those of the tragedians, the Dimbris, and the others, in order that they would catch, so I would catch myself in the act of being more ignorant than they. So I would take up those poems of theirs, which seemed to me they worked on the most, and I would ask them thoroughly what they meant, so I would might learn something from them at the same time. In other words, I read their poems, I read their things. I went to the first the tragedians and the Simbas, and then to see if they really meant something. What can I learn from them? Um, um, Notice he says the Tragedians. He doesn't clearly mention the comic, and that the comic one is the one who's condemned him already. Aristophanes doesn't go. That's something interesting. let's look at this carefully now. I would take up these poems. In other words, I would I went to the poets. Those are the tragedians and the dithyrambs, and the others. So the other poems are meant to indirectly. Comedy is not directly mentioned. It's in the others, right? In order that there may, I would catch myself in the act of becoming more ignorant than they. So I would take up their poems of theirs, which seemed to me that they had worked on the most, their best poems, their best things, not their worst, their best. He's strong manning them, he's saying. The straw manning, taking their weak and confronting them with their weakest, is a straw man tactic. He doesn't strong man. He takes what is their best arguments, their best works, the ones that they worked on the best. I'm going to challenge them at their strongest point, not their weakest point, the strongest point, strong manning them. And then what does he do? Uh, uh, let's see what they meant, and you might learn from the same time. um, I would catch my okay. I did tragedians, so I would take their poems and see them being worked on the most times. I would ask them thoroughly what they meant, and that I might learn something from them at the same time. I am ashamed to tell you, men of Athens, I must. It must be said. In other words, I am ashamed to tell you the truth, men of Athens. It must be said. Almost everyone present, so to speak, would have spoken better than the poets did about the poetry they themselves had made. In other words, all of you would have spoken much better than the poets themselves. So again, also concerning the poets, I soon recognized that they did not make what they made by wisdom, but by some sort of nature, and while inspired, like a diviner, and those who deliver oracles. In other words, um, the here word make is poison. This is not note 38, 39 below. The composed poetry is like something divine. It's not your knowledge. It's kind of a medium. You're not. It's not you. You don't really create it in this sense. He's the argument here. The poet. It's like a diviner. The diviner isn't making the prophecy. It's only the mediation. The poet seems to be only a mediation of something within nature. The argument Plato seems to be, Socrates here seems to be advancing that the poet isn't really a constructor, a knower, but rather a medium of it. And because he himself, the poets themselves didn't understand the poetry, and that you guys would have, the audience here would have been his audience. He's talking to the jurors. You would have had a better understanding of this, what was being said in the poem, than they did. Um, pardon. So again, I also concerning the poets, I soon recognized that they did not make what they made by wisdom, but from sorts of nature, and while inspired, like a diviner, and those live oracles. For they too say many noble things, but they know nothing of what they speak. In other words, they themselves don't know anything of it. The oracles and diviners just report. Okay, the poet doesn't really know what they're speaking about, the subject. They just report what they speak. It was apparent to me that the poets are also affected in this the same sort of way. At the same time, I perceived that they supposed, on account of their poetry, that they were wisest of all of human beings, also in other things, and they were, but they that they were the wisest human beings also in other things, in which they were not. So I went away from there, supposing that I had turned out to be superior to them in the very same thing I was with the politicians. So he went to the politician first, then to the poets, and to the sophists and those guys and other people, right? And finally, I went to the manual artisans, for I was conscious that they had knowledge of nothing. For I was conscious that they had knowledge of nothing, so to speak. But I knew I would discover at least they had knowledge of many noble things, beautiful things. In other words, the arts and crafts that they did. And and I was not played false about about this. They did have knowledge of many things I did not have knowledge of, and in this way they were wiser than I. But men of Athens, the good craftsmen, also seemed to me to go wrong in the same way to the poets, because he performed his art nobly. Each one deemed himself wisest in the other things, the greatest things, and this discordant note of theirs seemed to hide that wisdom. So, pardon the coughing. It's not COVID. It's anything. It's just this the circulation here is kind of horrible, and that's why I should have had a fan on, but I can't keep the fan on if we're recording. So, um, so there was he said the poet. He went to the poets. They claimed to know. They claimed to know things they didn't know. The politicians claimed, and people believed that they had knowledge of this. Didn't know. So first politicians, then the poets, then the artisan. And the artisans, he knows that they know something. The crafts that they do. And their knowledge of their crafts is beautiful and is a truly knowledge, but it's not a high knowledge. And the problem is these artisans, just like the poets and the politicians, think that they know higher things. They know more than what they really know. They suppose that their knowledge on this one thing, their art, leads them to have knowledge about all things. And this is where they err. And I was not prayed falseness, but I did have knowledge, but they did not. They did have knowledge of things which I did not have knowledge of, and in this way they were wiser than I. But men of Athens, the good craftsmen, also seemed to go wrong in the same way the poets, because because he performed his art nobly. Each one deemed himself also he wisest in the other thing, the greatest of things, and this discordant note of theirs seemed to hide that wisdom. So I asked myself on behalf of the oracle whether I would prefer to be as I am, being in no way wise in their wisdom or ignorant of their ignorance, or to go have both things, just as they have. And I answered myself that the oracle that it, I answered myself and the oracle that it profits me to be just as I am. In other words, I know that I don't have their wisdom, but I don't have their ignorance either. They're like artisans have a knowledge, not technical knowledge, but they make an error believing that that knowledge about that technical thing gives them also knowledge about higher and greater things. Doesn't. And you challenge them on that, and they're ignorant of that. They suppose this relationship, so they may have wisdom at this level, but they have a huge ignorance. Well, I'm ignorant on that, but I'm not ignorant on that. So therefore, uh, my double ignorance is better than I know. At least I know that I'm not knowing. They know this, but they also believe they know more when they really don't, and therefore their ignorance of that makes them more dangerous in that sense, or problematic. And he prefers to be just as I am, because I know that. Yes, I don't know that stuff, but I also know that I don't know those higher things. Um, and again, this leads us to 24b. I don't want to go too high there. So let's go through here. This is the examination, men of Athens, from which I had incurred the many hatreds. The sort are the harshest and gravest. The many slanders have arisen from them. And I got the name of being wise, and from this I got the name of being wise. I went through all these labors and all the politicians. He just mentions the politicians, the poet, and the tradesmen. He doesn't mention the sophists. He talks about the sophists and Protagoras. He says he's not one because they have a reputation of taking money. He doesn't take money, and he's accused of being one, but he's not. But he said he's not. But he's trying to explain it by his this testing of the oracle's claim by going through the politicians, the poets, and the craftsmen. This just pissed everyone off on it, Socrates. Okay, because and this is where the why everyone thought that he was this troublemaker and difficult person, and that's and they hated him. They hated him. Okay. Um, and from the sword of the harshest and gravest, so many slanders have arisen from them. And I got this name of being wise guy, Sophos. For those present on each occasion suppose that I myself am wise in the things concerning which I refute someone, whereby it is profitable men that really the God is wise, and that this oracle he is saying that human wisdom is a little or nothing, worth little or nothing. In other words, he's saying, no, he's suggesting that the, only the God is wise. Not, I mean, human wisdom is not worth much, um, in that sense, worth little or nothing. And he appears to say that the Socrates, say this of Socrates, and to have made use of my name in order to make me a pattern, as he would say, that one of you, O human beings, is wisest, who, like Socrates, has become cognizant of the truth that he is worth nothing with respect to wisdom. Where Socrates has an idea, negative idea. This is a negative idea. Socrates is not wise in the sense that he has wisdom, but Socrates is wiser than anyone, is the wisest of all the human beings, because he at least knows he does not have wisdom. He's aware that his limit does not, non-possession of it, and that therefore he is better than the others. Now, this is, again, is saying this to the jury kind of prudent or good strategy? I don't know. It's saying I'm wiser than all you out there because I know I'm a dumb hick. You guys think you're smart, okay? And the God just did this purposely to rub that in your face that you're dumb. Okay, now he continues that this is why even now I still go around seeking and investigating in accordance with with the God any townsman or foreigner I suppose to be wise. And whenever someone does not seem to me, I I come to the God's aid and show them that he's not wise. And because of this occupation, I have had no leisure. In other words, either do any of the things of the cities worth speaking of, or any of the things of my family. Instead, I am a tenfold, a 10,000-fold. I'm in 10,000-fold poverty because of my devotion to the gods. In other words, I don't either do what the city expects me to do, and I don't do what my family expects me to do. I'm so dedicated to the God. The God. The God made Oracle, Apollo's Oracle made this claim, and I am dedicating my life now to just verifying this. And my whole now life is dedicated to going to anyone who claims they have knowledge. I go check them out because just to make sure that do my duty to God, show them that they really don't have that knowledge, and to kind of educate them in that sense. Okay, come on. And because of this, I'm in 10,000-fold poverty because of my devotion to the God. Okay, and it's in addition to these things, the young who follow me of their own accord, those who have the most leisure, the sons of the wealthiest, enjoy hearing human beings being examined. Why are the youth following me? Because all these kids are the children of the wealthy. They're bored, and they like seeing people examined. What Socrates is doing, questioning people, this is entertaining, okay? And particularly entertaining since he's making buffoons of people, okay? And that's cool, and they have leisure, they have the time, they have the energy, nothing better to do, right? The sons of the wealthiest enjoy, because the other sons, the workers' sons, don't have the time to hang out with Socrates. They have to work to survive. The wealthy kids get to hang out with Socrates because they don't have to work. Okay, so they're watching and oh, Socrates is cool, man. Socrates is going about and going challenging these people, and ooh, this is fun because the kids like seeing people refuted, right? And they themselves often imitate me, and in turn they attempt to examine others. And then I suppose they discover a great abundance of human beings who suppose they know something, but know little or nothing. In other words, they themselves, they imitate me, and they discover that when I use they question people, like they imitate what I did, I Socrates did, and they start imitating me, and they discover, oh, these people don't know what they claim to know. Uh, and they turn to examine others, and then I suppose they discover the great abundance of human beings who suppose they know something, but know little or nothing. Thereupon, those examined by them are angry at me, Socrates, not at themselves, and they say, Socrates, that Socrates is someone most disgusting, and he corrupts the young. Was all these young people making fun of me and doing that. They imitating Socrates. Socrates corrupted them. If Socrates was there doing what he's doing, I wouldn't be attacked by the young. Oh, I hate Socrates. Oh, only if we get rid of Socrates, we'll be free of all these young people questioning us. And that's what this is the kind of attitude. This is the why people don't like Socrates. People have this opinion about Socrates' wisdom and Socrates' corruption of the young. Now, Socrates is admitting there is a case that is he doing this? Doesn't doesn't his knowledge that the youth are imitating him and he's doing this? And actually, this is the interesting thing. We have to always remember nowhere really in the Platonic account do we get Socrates in the marketplace. We always get Socrates at private events, the dialogues. Now, these private events are kind of in people's households, and the very wealthy young people are there. We don't get to see Socrates in the marketplace per se. That's usually reserved to something like the Xenophon's Memorabilia, where it's only in there we get a picture of Socrates in the public's face. Okay, not in Plato. Plato, we don't get really a kind of a public account. We get private accounts. That's going to say, "Oh, that's wrong." No, I mean, these accounts are really they're not really a kind of and the only place where the only Platonic dialogue where Socrates is in a setting of public concern is the Apology. Okay, and here he's being very aggressive in that sense. In other words, he's kind of pushing things. Uh, and a sucker must be someone discussing. And whenever someone asks them by doing what and teaching what, they have nothing to say but are ignorant. So, in order not to seem to be at loss when they say these things, they say that. No, sorry. When they so when it's okay when people ask them, well, what is he teaching them? What is he teaching them? Because they say I'm angry at Socrates because he's corrupting the young. Well, how is he corrupting him? What is they teaching him? And they don't know. So what do? They remember these stories about Socrates from the poets and people saying it. Those accusations about that Socrates don't believe in the gods, things in high and things in low, and makes these weaker arguments stronger, corrupts the young, and doesn't believe in the gods. These kind of things that the poets, particularly the comic poet Aristophanes, these in the clouds, kind of present of Socrates, right? This first accusers, right? So what he says, so in order not to be seen to be at a loss, they say the things that are ready at hand against all who philosophize. Oh, the things aloft and the things under the earth, quote unquote, and not believing in the gods, and making the weaker speech the stronger, quote unquote. Now, making the things aloft and under the earth, quote unquote, and not believing in the gods, and making the weaker speech the stronger. For I do not suppose they would be willing to speak the truth. That it became quite clear that they pretend to know, but know nothing. They won't admit that they pretended to know things and did not know nothing. The kids merely showed them up. And he goes, and since they are, I suppose, ambitious and vehement, and many, and since they speak about me in an organized and persuasive way, they have filled your ears, slandering me vehemently for a long time. Now I'm going to get this. For among these men, Metellus attacked me. So Metellus attacked me because of these people, in other words. And Antiochus and Lycon. So there's the point. Metellus, Antiochus, and Lycon. These are the three. Little is known of Lycon. He may be the Lycon of Xenophon's Symposium, a slow-witted, decent gentleman whose son is beloved by Callias, but we don't know. It could be that Lycon. It may not be. So we don't know who the Lycon is. Midlist being vexed on behalf of the poets, Antiochus on behalf of the craftsmen and politicians, and Lycon on behalf of the orators. So each one of them has a specific group. The orators are the people. The orators, the people teach speaking skills, and that's very important in Athens. Why? Because of lawsuits. Lawsuits. The Athenian culture is anyone can bring a suit. Bring a suit against somebody and a charge against them, and they bring it to the assembly. And it's not like we hire lawyers. No, you have to defend yourself. So this is and it's a very common practice that poor people accuse the rich of stealing things from them or accusing them of some harm or something they promised or not promised, and they would go to court. This is a mechanism of agitation that the weak, the people who have nothing, will go to the assembly filled with equally people. Remember, the assembly is mostly they pay people to come. The very wealthy don't come to the assembly; they have better things to do. They only tend to come to assembly because they're better, because they don't. It can be dangerous. So that's kind of they have a fear of losing something, so they will show up. But it's first come, first serve, and they get paid. The poor get paid to come. Everyone gets paid something, but for the rich, it's wealthy. This is ridiculous. Not enough. It's not worth their time. They lose money, but if they don't come, they really may lose other things, because what happens is the policy and the lawsuits will find in the favor of the poor, the many. So therefore, there is this kind of contest between the many and the poor, and then the courts. This is where it kind of takes its place and out. So therefore, what happens? The wealthy with money learn how to speak well. Their children will learn how to need to make the the orators, try to make them speak well and speak beautifully and speak in a way that allow them to persuade, not the truth, but you win, victory. In other words, the goal there is not the truth. The goal there for them is I win and the other guy loses. So they teach them all these tricks. The orators will teach tricks to those who pay them, how to trick hearers, how to win arguments. Not really win by hook trick. Win, not discover the truth. Win, and with particular emphasis on style and tactics of style that will make the listener hear you and pay more attention to you, and you seem smarter than the other guy. Okay, again, means not truth. Tactics, not truth. Style, not truth. The orators make a very good living to the rich and powerful as a mechanism of self. This is a thing that the many, the wealthy, have to do to arm themselves in the courts to protect them against the accusations of the many. So everyone has to go take care of themselves, go for themselves. You don't have lawyers, you don't have a defender. That comes out of Roman law, where you have to have counsel. Someone will represent you in the thing. Usually your patron, the person who's your patron, or someone who's like that. You have you off or hire a patron to who will speak in the Senate and the courts to on your behalf. But in Athens, it's everyone for himself, and therefore this is why they come in here now. Metalis again. The Metalis attacks is for the um, on behalf of the poets. Metius is on defending on behalf of poets. Antius is on the craftsmen and the politicians, and Lycon is the orator. And therefore, I've said as I began, I would wonder to me if I would be able, in a short time, to take away this slander which has become so great. For the truth of you, men of Athens, I am hiding nothing from you, either great or small, in my speech, nor am I holding anything back. And yet I know rather well that I incur hatred by these very things, and is also proof that I speak the truth. In fact, I'm going to speak the truth, and I'm pissing you off. This is proof that I'm speaking the truth, and that this is the slander against me, and that are the causes. That these are of its causes. Whether you investigate these things now or later, you will discover this is so. We end this here. Now, I'm going to end here because this is the place where we end. In this sense, I will. This is the end of the Oracle issue and the contestation of this and why he's hating. We'll come back to 24a a little bit as we turn to our next stage. So on this, we'll stop. Um, I'm going to stop thing and hope everything is okay. If you like any questions, please put below. Put the on the below, like it, share it with other people. You can follow me on social. I think my social media links will be on here. Please subscribe if you like this and pass it on to a friend. Okay, have a good day. Thank you very much.